Good morning from the brutal capitalist dictatorship of Kuala Lumpur. I hope you're having an amazing day, because if you're having an amazing day, I'm having an amazing day. If I'm having an amazing day, you should also be having an amazing day. Alright, today we're going to play a little guessing game. I'm going to show you a quote by a very famous person, and you're going to guess who it is. Are you ready? We are socialists. We are enemies of today's capitalistic economic system for the exploitation of the economically weak, with its unfair salaries, with its unseemly evaluation of a human being according to wealth and property instead of responsibility and performance. And we are all determined to destroy this system under all conditions. Was it A, Karl Marx, B, Vladimir Lenin, or C, Adolf Hitler? Congratulations! The answer is C, Adolf Hitler. But that can't be, can it? How could it possibly be C, since Hitler hated communism, and he hated everything that Karl Marx stood for, and the Jew that he hated the most was Karl Marx, and that's why during his reign of terror, he burned every single piece of Marxist literature he could get his hands on. Why is he suddenly spouting socialist talking points, or left-wing talking points, when, basically he's a rugged individualist who believes in survival of the fittest, and basically hates anyone who is a so-called degenerate, and believes that only the strong should thrive while the weak should die. Why is he spouting left-wing talking points when he is clearly a far right-winger? Because whether you like it or not, fascism is right-wing. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because right-wing talking points, quite frankly, in their bare, honest form, are really not very appealing to the masses, right? Basically, to sum up right-wing talking points, it's basically, every man for himself, the strongest and the brightest and the most brilliant should rule society, while the worthless degenerates should basically, have to be homeless or starve because they do not contribute to producing value, at least according to a right-wing standpoint, right? And that is essentially the right-wing worldview, that, basically in society, there are people who deserve a civilized standard of living, and there are people who don't deserve a civilized standard of living. The most honest right-winger will probably be someone like Thomas Sowell, for example, right? Who just tells you straight out that, poor people deserve to be poor because they're bad with money and, incompetent at keeping a job. But you see, that's not very appealing to the masses, you see. So right-wingers have now figured out how to co-opt left-wing vernacular, if you will, in order to try and win the masses over through false consciousness. Basically, right-wing ideology is a know-your-place peasant sort of ideology, because right-wingers, since the dawn of time, since long before the birth of capitalism, have always been for the preservation of unequal social disparities, right? Now, in feudal times, that took the form of the divine right of kings, when the barons said that I have a right to exploit and oppress you because I have the divine right of kings. Then, as a result of the Enlightenment and the shifting of the public consciousness away from superstition and religion, well, basically you come to the capitalist stage, also as a result of the shifting of the mode of production from farms to factories due to the Industrial Revolution, when now the feudal baron has become the capitalist, right? Yes, many people from the feudal classes ended up matriculating into the bourgeois classes, It's a bit off topic, but basically the the right-wing Malay Nationalist Party, UMNO, United Malays National Organization, they are a bourgeois party, right? And most of their early members, like Tunku Abdul Rahman, were descendants of royalty, right? So under capitalism, basically capitalism has co-opted, or rather it has matriculated the descendants of the feudal lords into the new ruling class. You know, that's why they keep the British monarchy around. But the British capitalists basically use the British monarchy for their odious foreign adventures. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I mean, that's not really the topic of today's video. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is that now the New Age feudal lords will tell you that, yeah, we have the right to oppress and exploit you because we have the divine power of capital, right? And you don't. So, suck it up, peasants. But you see, now the right-wing ruling class has now gotten to understand, or is now beginning to figure out that, you know, perhaps they've been doing things wrong. Perhaps the masses really aren't as stupid and gullible as they thought they were, right? So now, right-wing propaganda has become a lot sneakier and a lot more difficult to detect, right? And that's why you have far right-wingers like Adolf Hitler, and you have people like Jordan Peterson even professing to care about the working class. Like, you can watch Jordan Peterson's tirades about how we need to care for men because men do the essential jobs in society and nobody cares about them because they're all going home to masturbate alone, and basically we've got a generation of incels who can't get a girlfriend to save their lives, and that's bad because, you know, these men, they contribute to society. They're out there killing themselves in jobs that they hate. But you know something, if these people like Jordan Peterson really did care about the working class, they would call themselves socialists. No, not just call themselves socialists. They would actually be pushing for meaningful reform, right? They wouldn't only be against capitalism, they would also be pushing for the downfall of the bourgeoisie, right? But they didn't. Hitler's version of socialism was a form of bourgeois socialism, basically, in which he basically co-opted the businessmen and nationalized the means of production. But basically, only certain people in his mind were deserving of, socialism. Not everyone, basically. Certainly not Jews, and certainly not people he regarded as filthy degenerates. But anyway, enough digression. Today's video is really about a recent phenomenon that we've noticed on YouTube by a chap who's living in the South, if I'm not mistaken, the southern states, or is it the Midwest? I'm not quite sure. I assume it's the Midwest, but correct me if I'm wrong. This is an American chap named Oliver Anthony, right? And basically, he composed and sang a song, apparently. I don't know whether he really composed it or not. He probably did, but some people suspect that it was actually composed by a bunch of right-wingers, and basically they got him to sing that song. And it's called Men North of Richmond, right? And I'm not going to play the song here because you've probably heard that song by now. You know, it's got around 8 million views on YouTube, if I'm not mistaken, and it's now possibly the most popular song in America because many people are saying that this song really, really speaks to their hearts, right? It's supposed to be a pro-working class song. And to be honest, when I first listened to it, the first few lines really struck a chord with me. And I thought, okay, this is great. But then you get to the middle. I'll show you. Actually, you know what? Let me just sing that song for you. I'll just sing it for you. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. Alright, the first verse sounds good, alright? And it's damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me and people like you. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is who it is. Alright, so, basically the first few lines talk about the alienation that people feel under capitalism, right? And having to drown their sorrows with liquor or other types of substances in order to basically give their miserable lives some kind of meaning, right? Okay, then let's get to this part down here. Living in the new world with an old song, these rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Now I assume he's talking about the politicians, right? Want to know what you think, want to know what you do. Yep, he's talking about the politicians. Because your dollar ain't shit and it's taxed to no end because of rich men north of Richmond. Okay, right. Now this is the problematic part, and the part where that raised a lot of red flags for me, and not communist flags, mind you. I wish politicians would look out for minors, and not just minors on an island somewhere. I assume that's a reference to Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking machine, which is fair enough. Okay, but this is the problematic part. Okay. Lord, we got folks in the street ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and 300 pounds, tax ought to not pay for your bags of fudge rounds. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground because this damn country does. All this damn country does is keep kicking them down. Yeah, that's the problematic part, you see. So the song basically went. It basically went one step forward and 2 steps backward. Do you see? Because while at the first part of the song you genuinely felt that it was a song that was trying to bring class consciousness for the masses, he just had to ruin it by bringing the classical welfare queen, milking our resources trope, basically, we were so close. I mean, the song was so close, getting to the point, and then, all of a sudden, instead of blaming the greedy, rapacious capitalists for stealing our surplus value, he ends up blaming oppressed people under the system, right? Yeah, just because you're overweight and on welfare, that's not mutually exclusive with you being an oppressed proletariat, right? And yet you had people like Haas basically saying that, oh, no, this is actually class struggle, basically. But to be fair, Haas has also said that, blue-haired baristas don't actually deserve socialism, right? Only real workers, aka right-wing workers, deserve socialism. And Midwestern Marx has been going around gaslighting people, calling people like myself purity fetishists, because we are not on board with this new song. We are very, very concerned about the fact that this song not only seems to draw people's hatred away from the capitalist class, or drive people's resentment away from the capitalist class and on another downtrodden proletariat. Now, I don't know this guy's background. He could be an oppressed proletariat for all that matters, right? I'm not saying that he's some boat-owning fascist, although there are many boat-owning fascists in the MAGA movement, but that's beside the point. But what I am saying is that this song, in the end, while it presents a veneer of class consciousness, in the end, it ends up punching down at downtrodden members of society in the same way Thomas Sowell Wood. Here's a Thomas Sowell quote saying that, "I once met a man from India, who was surprised to see that there were overweight homeless people in America," basically punching down on the undeserving poor, right? If this song were any danger to the bourgeoisie, if it were any danger to capital, then the ruling class would be shaking in their boots. They would be trying to cancel him, right? But no, look at all these right-wing national socialists like Stephen Crowder, Michael Knowles, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, praising this song to the high heavens. The ruling class is not threatened by him. If anything, they are tickled by him. They're not hurt by him. They are amused by him. So, this song has not actually done anything in order to hurt the bourgeoisie. It's not done anything to hurt the rapacious, greedy capitalists who are stealing our surplus value. And it's certainly not done anything to trigger the reactionaries who are actually promoting it as well, right? So if you have right-wing National Socialists of America promoting this song, that is not a good sign. And that is valid. That is a valid point for concern, right? Fundamentally, there's only one difference between a socialist and a national socialist, right? A national socialist like Hitler or Mussolini believes in socialism. They do, but they only believe that a certain group of people who conform to their standards deserve socialism, while the rest of the people can go to hell. They only love and care for a certain strata of the Volk, right? Hitler created the Volkswagen, just like the National Socialist of Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir, created the Proton car, which is an effective and affordable car for the masses, right? But just like, Hitler did not care for all members of the population, for example, Jewish people, gypsies, social degenerates such as homosexuals or transgender people, Mahathir only cared about wealthy, elite, bourgeois Malays, right? He didn't think everyone in the Malaysian population was deserving of socialism, right? So he only cared about certain Malays, white-collar, technocrat, bourgeois Malays, right? People who fit his standards, just like the National Socialists of America, for example, do not care about woke blue-haired baristas, and in fact they don't think that these people deserve a civilized standard of living, because apparently they're not real workers, right? You can go and ask Hinkle or Haas, go and ask Midwestern Marx as well. Has Midwestern Marx ever brought up the issue of the crying barista? Or, for that matter, no, they haven't. And there's a good reason why, because they think that basically those people are undeserving of socialism. They're not real workers. Real workers means right-wingers like them, you see? I want us to revisit this Hitler quote one more time. I want you to focus on these three words here: responsibility and performance, right? Look at them. Responsibility and performance. Why did he add those three words in it? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because, basically, Hitler makes a distinction between the deserving and the undeserving poor, right? The deserving poor would be right-wing, traditional men like him, right? Who also hate Jews. While the undeserving poor would be degenerates, social degenerates like homosexuals or transgendered people or, ethnic minorities he didn't like. Those would be the undeserving poor, right? In the same way, Ronald Reagan also would make a distinction between the deserving, hardworking, white-collar, white American workers and the lazy black welfare queens, right? Now, I'm not saying that this song of Oliver Anthony is getting into race. It's not getting into race, but it's certainly making a distinction between the deserving poor and the undeserving poor, basically the so-called 300-pound moochers on welfare, right? And that's a problem, because right-wingers love it, because right-wing ideology is also it also revolves around deserving and undeserving people, right? See, a real socialist who actually cared about the people, not just people he deemed deserving, would be someone like Chin Peng or Ong Bun Hua, the Communist Party of Malaya's leader last time, right? He passed away in 2013, but Chin Peng was a man who actually cared about the masses as a whole. You can question his methods and you can say that his administration was somewhat incompetent, right? But you cannot doubt his sincerity in fighting and struggling for the working class, the masses of all Malayans, not just Chinese people, even Malays living in false consciousness who believed that the Chinese were basically parasites on the economy. Chin Peng cared about them as well, right? Because Chin Peng was not a national socialist. Chin Peng was a socialist with a capital S. Chin Peng cared about the rights of the people, just like we, real socialists, care about the rights of the people, right? I don't think Oliver Anthony should be exploited or bullied at work. But at the same time, I also don't think that the blue-haired barista or the leftist degenerate, so to speak, should be exploited or bullied or, treated badly at work either. I think everyone, regardless of whether you're a miner in a coal mine or a barista, you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and you should own the means of production because you are the ones producing value. We don't create distinctions between the different groups of workers, because that is when we get into National Socialism, right? When Hitler says responsibility and performance, what does that mean? That means only competent people, by his standards, only people who conform to his standards of what a real person is, deserve socialism, while the rest of the population, the degenerates, don't deserve it. Ergo, it is basically socialism for right-wingers, right? And I'm not really liking the responses of these American National Socialists towards leftist degenerates like us, telling us that we lazy, out-of-touch leftists just need to get a job because we don't know what the working people want. How condescending. We don't know what the working people want. First of all, I have a job. I'm an English teacher. I teach English, okay, and I teach literature. But to some of you, that might not be counted as a real job, right? But anyway, I am a teacher, so I do have a real job. But at the same time, I can spot false right-wing populism from a mile away when I see it, because I have seen it time and again. Because in the past, in Malaysia, before we voted them out, we were actually ruled by a fascist party called Barisan Nasional. But it's funny because the party that were once the fascists have now joined up with the new ruling class. Now they've joined up with the liberals whom we voted in, right? So it's funny, they do seem like strange bedfellows, but anyway, we have seen this play out time and again, right? Politicians telling people that you're basically, it's not due to the capitalist class that's stealing your wealth, but it is due to certain minorities that are stealing your wealth. In Malaysia, that might be the Chinese, but in America, that might be the LGBT, the 300-pound people on welfare, and so on and so forth, right? So basically, the socialist gets to the point and tells you that the capitalist is appropriating your wealth, But the National Socialist tells you, no, the cause of your problems in society is not because of the capitalists, it is because of the degenerate leftist, blue-hat baristas, and the degenerate LGBT people. That's the cause of your problems. That's what they will tell you, right? So don't buy into this false consciousness. We are not stupid. We can see it from a mile away. So I guess I'm going to wrap up this video and get ready to go to class. But I just want to say that no, people are rightly upset. They are legitimately upset about this song because the song punches down on vulnerable working class people. We're not saying that this man who sang this song deserves to be exploited, right? But we are saying that these so-called American communists are not doing their jobs to educate the masses and to rectify that point of false consciousness in the song, right? In fact, they're going along with it, right? So that's what really upsets us, and yeah, that's about it for today. And I'm going to end this this video with a revolutionary poem of my own that will actually punch up at the capitalist ruling class instead of punching down on undeserving poor people. Let's go. Ahem. Lazy capitalist swine, on caviar you dine, living off the proletariat's sweat, blood and tears, stealing our wealth for the last 250 years. Useless as a pig in a meeting room, can't even do basic things like Zoom, stealing our surplus value to make sugar for your baby, alienating us from our families while you alienate your kids and lady. There's a special place in hell for you, you greedy bourgeois shit. And when the revolution's through, you're going to be in it. See? I didn't need to punch down on other poor people. I didn't need to punch down on vulnerable minorities, vulnerable groups of people, pardon me. I just expressed what was in my heart against the rapacious, nasty capitalist class who are brutalizing all of us. Okay, thank you very much and have a great day. And as usual, selamat berjuang. Happy struggle.